seen in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media.
I would go ahead and come on out and tell you exactly what I think about this, but I believe that this story is a little bit more layered than you might would think. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you guys have heard, and of course you would not have clicked on this video if you had not actually heard what's going on right now with Russell Brand, and of course his 2-minute 46-second response, which I'll play in full here soon. But apparently MeToo allegations have popped up again. Now guys, in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on what's really going on here, why it is that this is popping back up. And I'm also going to be giving you guys my thoughts on the whole MeToo thing as a whole, because let's just go ahead and be honest. After Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, after so many other situations where we have seen, and of course some of these situations, by the way, were legit, like in the case of Harvey Weinstein, and of course that island that we're not allowed to speak of, especially given the fact that community guideline standards here on YouTube continue to get more and more strict, even though they claim that they're laxing them. But at the same time, though, obviously there's some things that we need to discuss, especially when it comes to that. But then again, though, at the same time, due to a lot of false allegations, it's kind of diluted the pool. But don't worry, we will talk more about that towards the end of the video. So what exactly is going on here? So Russell Brand, as many of you guys know, former comedian, played in a lot of movies, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Get Me to the Greek, also did some very outrageous stuff like showing up in New York City dressed up as bin Laden. A lot of things that quite frankly would be, how do I say, deemed morally questionable and of course inappropriate in the overall timing. However, over the years, Russell has gone through a bit of a rebrand, and while I've never really truly been a fan of the man, I'm definitely a little bit more open-minded to him now, because even though he's definitely still very, very much a man of the left, he's been branded as right-wing, and a lot of this is, of course, because of, well, takes like this.
Did Sweden get it right all along by being non-interventionist? Now, we can't revise the past, but we do have to remember it. We do have to learn from it. Now, Donald Trump, and I know a lot of you guys love him, was very proud of those vaccines, right? That's probably one of the things you're like, oh, but he does like the vaccines. Well, let's see what Donald Trump is saying about the vaccines, lockdowns, and potential pandemic policies going forward.
The left-wing lunatics are trying very hard to bring back COVID lockdowns and mandates with all of their sudden fear-mongering about the new variants that are coming. Gee whiz, you know what else is coming? An election. They want to restart the COVID hysteria so they can justify more lockdowns, more censorship.
I do believe in the general analysis that first there is an appetite to achieve something, and then they reverse engineer the way to achieve it. The legacy media is falling apart. The ability to control the narrative and control the people is starting to change. The suggestion is we need new systems and new models. There should be more democracy, not less, less authority, not more. And Donald Trump, whether or not he delivers, and you can let me know in the comments what you think about this, he knows the language, he knows the rhetoric, he knows the questions, he knows how to frame these arguments. And because what we're offered as an alternative to Donald Trump is such inept, innocuous, vacuous, deceptive politics, people claiming that there's a new pharma bill, you look at the details, it's bullshit. The Hawaii fires, well, let's look after our own, we care about diverse people, it's bullshit. Because of that, this kind of language, this kind of rhetoric is much more powerful. And because we were all, generally speaking, so compliant in the lockdown era, and then you learn Sweden, who basically said, oh, go about your business, we'll work it out, we're trying to cross-reference it with the economic impact of lockdowns, the impact on cancer, heart disease, diabetes, mental health, addiction. We're looking at it and we're thinking probably a non-interventionist approach. Plus, we're a genuinely liberal democracy who don't secretly crave as much authoritarianism as possible.
Oh, he sounds like a Trump guy. He sounds like a guy who's very, very much on the Trump train. I would not say that exactly. Russell Brand, since about 2019, when he returned to the internet itself, went through a bit of a rebrand. He eventually got married. He had kids. Of course, he was a recovered drug addict. He was recovered from heroin. Of course, he's also living an extremely promiscuous lifestyle. I always have to reference the video that the content creator named Moon did on Russell Brand. I'll leave it in the description box, the actual rebrand of him. And Russell seems to have cleaned up his life, regardless of whether you may agree with this man's politics or not. I personally don't agree with most of what he says, but when it comes to actual truth seeking, he's actually gotten very good at it. And not only has he gotten very good at it, this is a guy whose channel has got roughly 6.7 million subscribers, and of course, if he's on the side of truth, he could in fact be an extremely impactful voice, especially going into the very, very next year, which by the way is an election year. Now guys, I have toned down the pure political content of this channel because let's be honest, regardless of where you line up on the spectrum, politics, quite frankly, can be boring. I still do the social commentary stuff, but of course that right there has mostly been reduced now to things like movie, gaming, everyday life, stuff like that, how to deal with it, of course, anti-wokeness, and of course, as you guys know, I'm slowly but surely trying to transition this channel more and more and more into overall essay-type content, where I would be doing stuff like, talking about this guy here, his rebrand, stuff like that there, and other issues today that people, quite frankly, wonder about, and from a different perspective. Russell, on the other hand, is very, very much a guy who's on the left, and he even got non-political, and he even had such takes where he would say stuff like, whoever's got the most amount of money is going to obviously win, so why in the world would you vote? And after all the other controversies, he ultimately, eventually came out and, of course, pretty much became more of a truth teller than anything else. And basically the thing that really did it for him was the COVID lockdowns, which I'll talk about here momentarily. But you got to ask yourself a question with his very, very promiscuous past. Why did something like this accusation not come up earlier? Why is that the case? Is he being targeted because he could be extremely influential? Well, I tell you what, let's play that 2 minute and 46 seconds for you guys, and we'll talk more about it on the other side. And of course, I'll let you guys decide like always.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack, and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff, like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of. And we saw a spate of headlines from media outlets across the world using the same language. I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you, you're getting too close to the truth. Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago there was a spate of articles, Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist, Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me, like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice. I don't mind them using my books and my stand-up to talk about my promiscuous consensual conduct in the past. What I seriously refute are these very, very serious criminal allegations. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to me to be a coordinated attack. Now, I don't want to get into this any further because of the serious nature of the allegations, but I feel like I'm being attacked, and plainly they are working very closely together. We are obviously going to look into this matter because it's very, very serious. In the meantime, I want you to stay close, stay awake, but more important than any of that, if you can, please stay free.
It definitely seems that way. It definitely seems like it's once again yet another witch hunt. It definitely seems that way, especially given the amount of power that Russell Brand could possibly wield, especially in the conversation. He's gone after liberal journalists. He's gone after people for lying. And, of course, his politics over the years, because of the fact that he's now a family man, have probably changed a little bit more like he actually presents himself. Yes, he's a comedian and obviously an actor. And you probably think to yourself, well, obviously these people put on a bit of a front and a bit of a facade. But after being a recovering heroin addict, after being a recovering drug addict, after being somebody who, quite frankly, was in the spotlight and then chose to walk away, it's one of the reasons why it is I advise you guys to watch the video that Moon did. I'll link it in the description box, possibly in the comment section. I'll probably link some more stuff from my Gear Issue 33 channel as well, because I'm about to start posting back there again here real soon. Of course, it was designed to be a video essays channel, but the problem is that when you have an essays related channel, and I'll just talk about that more towards the end. Fact of the matter is, it definitely looks like something is being pulled out of the woodwork here to slander a guy, and they've obviously chosen to go the route of MeToo. Here's the problem with the MeToo stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and address this now. I know this was going to be the end of the video, but I decided to change things up. Sue me. Here's the thing. The whole MeToo allegations thing. When you start getting false accusations, when you start getting false stories, like, for example, the case of Christine Blasey Ford from 30 years prior to Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, during that whole entire thing, it begins to look wacky. It's always political, and even if said allegation could have been true, the problem is that you're bringing it up so far later. And by the way, I'm very, very much an advocate of women saying, look, if I was sexually assaulted, or the R word, whatever, because you can't say here on YouTube, then you need to go ahead and come on forward. I understand why it is. I had a conversation a long time ago with a lady about this. I said, well, why don't they come forward right away? And she explained the process to me, and I was like, okay, well, I can kind of understand it, but still, you need to come forward. If something happened, you need to come forward. And given Russell's promiscuous past, one would probably think in the public eye that maybe he probably did do something like that. However, he's saying he's got actual witnesses to corroborate and contradict exactly what it is that the media is saying. Also, to go on top of that, even though Russ is a bit of a comical, left-leaning guy, very, very weird, very, very odd, and yes, there is some behavior that, quite frankly, he's done that's outrageous. He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that would just do it for malicious purposes or even try that. He just doesn't strike me as that. I mean, maybe I'm naive, but the fact of the matter is that this right here, for the most part, does in fact look like it's just coming out of the woodworks for no reason. It looks to me like a slam piece. So therefore, you try to go the Me Too route rather than any other route, which, by the way, the Me Too route typically tends to one that is always the one that typically tends to stick, because the idea is not to convict you in court of law. The idea is to convict you in the eyes of the public. I'm surprised when I found out that Danny Masterson was actually getting a bunch of jail time for his, even though they had just tried his, and it was practically a mistrial. I was very, very baffled that they would continue to pursue, which makes me wonder exactly, did he have something on the system? Did he have something on the scheme? Did he have some opinions people did not like? Very, very weird. The problem with the Me Too allegation stuff is that when you pull it out from so long, and if it's proven to be false, which a lot of these have been proven to be false, it dilutes the pool, it dilutes the information, and people automatically assume that what it should always be, even if a person is guilty of sin, it should always be innocent until proven guilty. It's the way it is in this nation. It's the way it should be in this nation. But the idea, of course, is obviously to convict Russell Brand in the public eye. Now, I'm pretty sure of his 6.7 million subscribers, I'm pretty sure that 90% of those subscribers know his past, know who he is, and probably watch him when they do watch him, not really caring, because they see how much he's reformed, and they probably don't believe what the media has to say anyways. Well, how many times has the media lied to people? Crap ton. So at this moment in time, people for the most part are starting to come around to my thinking, and they can see that obviously whatever the media reports is just good old-fashioned WWE. That right there is the problem with this case. Now, like I said before, me personally, I think it's a smear job. However, to the common person out there, they may not think that it's a smear job, yet at the same time, though, as I've also said, because of so many false allegations that have been levied against people, and like I said, there's been some that were completely legitimate. Harvey Weinstein should have been locked up. I mean, we're going to say it. But when you start throwing false accusations after a while, people just automatically don't believe what the hell is coming out, which actually does more of a disservice to women. Why it is you're coming out and you're hitting somebody from 20 or 30 years ago, or you want to go after somebody over some tweets that were put out there, makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it's just the outrage mob. You should have taken care of that right then and there. And like I said, I understand. I mentioned earlier, I understand why some may not speak up about these type of things. But at the same time, though, you got to kind of wonder why it is that we're talking about it now. Which brings me to the machine. Russell talked about Joe Rogan, and he talked about the whole C19, we gotta say it very, very weird. He talked about that whole thing in his little segment. And this right here is what I wanted to say to you guys, all right? And I want you guys to think very, very clearly. Just sit back and think very clearly on this. Many people label Joe Rogan as right-wing. Joe Rogan is not right-wing. Some people have said that he's libertarian. I would argue that Joe Rogan is left-leaning, libertarian, anarcho-socialist because, quite frankly, his politics don't exactly match that of a libertarian. This is the same guy who had Bernie Sanders on, a bunch of leftists on. Of course, those leftists branded him as right-wing when he basically said, look, I'm not going to have you guys on this channel anymore. And he was a Bernie bro. It was a Bernie bro in 2020. He was a Bernie bro in 2016. In 2020, right before the election ended, or right before the election started, he advised all of his listeners to go to Kyle Kulinski and David Pakman, of all people, when it comes to helping make the political choice. Two of the stupidest rubes out there on this platform were told that they were going to be getting an audience that came from Joe Rogan to seek political advice. That right there alone dumbed down the entire political voting class of 2020. The minute you go to those two idiots, the entire IQ of the voter electorate drops in half. Once again defending Joe Rogan. And by the way, anytime I've ever done a video on Joe Rogan, I've always said he's not a friend to conservatives. Stop thinking that he is your friend. Now, somebody's going to say, well, maybe you just don't like Joe Rogan because of his political opinions. No, I never said I didn't like Joe Rogan. I never said he wasn't a guy who did not know his field, which is fighting. But then again, though, if I remember correctly, back in 2013, 14, 15, 16 time frame, there was this fighter that he really and truly puffed up like crazy to where she could actually beat Floyd Mayweather. That person, of course, was Ronda Rousey, who, by the way, was an extremely dominant fighter in her day, but she was dominating a sport at that time that did not have enough dominant female athletes. Outside of Gina Carano, Chris Cyborg, and, of course, outside of Miesha Tate, there really was nothing there to dominate, even though she had beat Tate twice. By the way, if you guys remember the whole Chris Cyborg incident, the whole thing, that whole fight that didn't get worked out, I actually began to lose some respect for Ronda because it didn't seem to me like she was taking on all challengers. Granted, of course, if you put the two side by side, then obviously Cyborg would look to be the more dominant person. But then again, though, Amanda Nunes eventually dominated Cyborg, and of course, Amanda Nunes dominated Ronda Rousey. Fact of the matter is this right here. Joe Rogan's constant shroom episodes, constant acid trips that he had about Ronda Rousey, in a lot of ways, diluted people's trust for him. They automatically thought that he was a moron afterwards. I've never really truly changed my opinion. Like I said, I don't have a problem with Joe personally. I actually like him. But here's the thing, though. Don't think for 2 seconds that guy right there is your friend just because the mainstream media attacks him. It's a little bit different than what it is with Russell Brand. Russell Brand has actively, for a while, as I'm about to show you guys here in a second, he's actually gone through an actual honest-to-God transformation in trying to find the truth. Pay attention.
It was fresh in a world defined by identity politics. The first major sign of this was in December 3rd, 2020. When Russell released a video titled COVID Vaccine Skepticism or Trust. It was a video that showed the open-minded approach Russell now had to the current political situation we're in today.
New ideas are being leveraged on the basis of public health and safety that certainly seem to have another component due to some of the partners that are involved, notably Pfizer, and at a time where people are concerned as well as about their health, about individual liberty and the impediment on individual liberty imposed by government organisations aided and abetted by corporations, it seems it's concerning.
With no Hollywood elite moulding his views, no addictions, no public pressure, Russell was able to provide a balanced view on the vaccine, a feat no one in the media or YouTube could ever do, for fears of being cancelled or silenced by big tech or their bosses. The video would eventually blow up, getting 10 times the viewership of Russell's usual videos. And then in 2021, in the aftermath of the Capitol Hill riots, Russell, a man who in the past was quick to call Brexit voters bigots, was now voicing the concerns of Capitol Hill rioters, giving their perspective a chance to be heard in the face of untold scrutiny from the mainstream media, academics, and Washington establishment.
What I'm saying is that what is interesting about these disturbances, about this disruption, is that during the last few months we have seen a continuation of increasing inequality. It is likely, given the architecture of the Biden government, that most people, regardless of their colour or their class, will not see significant change in their quality of life. So I suppose my ultimate conclusion is this, If you want to be free of this kind of behavior, then we have to contribute to the creation of conditions that help us to be free of it.
Russell would continue making these videos, highlighting the deception and Mickey Mouse levels of government control the World Economic Forum proposed.
Davos Week, the Great Reset. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Why do we keep hearing this phrase?
In addition to highlighting...
Guys, that right there was only 2 minutes of a video that's about 30 minutes long. Like I said before, I will be leaving in the description box for you guys. Fact of the matter is that this right here seems like a great big giant load of BS. It seems like they are using this little MeToo incident to try to throw something at Brand. And like I said before, I'm no fan of Brand, but here I am having to actually having to defend him against everybody in the world because of the fact that it's pretty obvious the reason why they're doing this. They're bringing this out of the middle of nowhere because of how much power he could possibly wield. And don't you guys find it very odd that the minute he actually brings up Donald Trump, and by the way, he did another video on Trump about the mugshot, explaining what was going to happen there. Don't you guys find it very odd that the minute he decided to bring this up and sound somewhat pro-Trumpian, they decided to go after him? Sounds to me like a good old-fashioned smear campaign. Sounds like a good old-fashioned smear job. With that right there being said, guys, we got one more video to come out tomorrow that's going to be kind of a reaction to something that happened over this weekend. Just know that it involves a presidential candidate, and of course it involves some very, very deep stuff. With that right there being said, this video right here will be posted Monday afternoon, probably at the 3 o'clock hour, like most of my videos are, and the other one will probably come out at 5 or 6. So make sure you guys stick around for both. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here. Let's make this platform a little bit bigger. Also, please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts. Please tell me how you feel. Please tell me exactly what you think of my commentary on this issue. Also, something else too, please share the video if you liked it. Share it with friends. Pass it around. Also, post it to Facebook. And I shall see you guys later.